Good evening, everyone. It's been, I guess, probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks since I have done any sort of vlog, and there's been a lot to talk about. But mostly just gonna talk about PAX actually. So I didn't actually announce this on my channel, but I went to PAX East. No, I did not. I went to PAX West yesterday, and I had never been before, and a lot of people were actually asking me like, "Oh man, how was it? How was it?" and stuff like that. And I was originally just going to answer them, but then I decided that with the amount of people that wanted to hear about it and the amount of people that would probably want to see my beautiful face again, I might as well just like do another vlog update to talk about PAX. But I did say that a couple other really cool things have happened. So number one is for the first month ever, I got over 10,000 views, which was pretty damn cool. I mean, I last month I had like 7,000 or like 6,000 views or something, and I set out a goal for myself that by the end of this year I would have a month where I got over 10,000 views, and I got that the month that I made that as a goal, which was really cool. And so I just want to thank everybody for continuing to watch and support and subscribe and all that good stuff. Like, goddamn, it's been a pretty crazy summer. But yeah, let's talk about PAX then. So I went to PAX yesterday, and the only other convention I've ever been to was MagFest, and MagFest was pretty big, but PAX is enormous. I mean, okay, the first thing that I did was I went with a group, but I'll just tell the story as if it was just by myself, just to not confuse anything. But the first thing I did was I went to some, just like all the big vendor booths. I went to like Nintendo, and I went to Sega, and I went to the Dauntless booth, and like the Gigabyte booth, and the Asus booth, and everything like that. And that was a mistake, because that expo hall was so packed. I could, after about like 5 minutes of it, I was actually starting to freak out a little bit, because there was just lines for every single booth. I couldn't actually do anything except walk past booths for things that I couldn't actually interact with, because the lines were like 2 or 3 hours long for every single exhibit that I was looking at. And there were so many people. It was really dimly lit, but there were also flashing lights everywhere. There were fog machines going on the whole time. And I'm not like agoraphobic or claustrophobic or anything like that, but I can get like a little bit stressed out if I'm in an area where there are people around me like for too long. Like if it goes on for like maybe more than 20 minutes, then I start to get like basically like a real problem with it really fast. I don't know how to describe it or whatever it is, but that's just how I am. I don't know. But yeah, so that was a very, very intense way to start off the morning. And when I decided to go to the other expo hall, which was mostly focused on the smaller developers, and it was mostly independent games, and it was mostly like really small vendors of hardware and stuff like that, that became a much, much cooler experience, because I was able to actually talk to people. And so I saw a couple of really cool indie games, and I was able to actually go up and talk to the developers directly, at least a little bit. But there's a really fun thing that I saw, which is the Magica people. No, not the Magica people. I'm sorry. The people that made Trine are basically making a clone of Magica, and I didn't know that they were doing this. They're not really a company that promotes themselves very heavily, so I'm not too surprised I didn't know about this. But they are making a clone of Magica, and Magica is one of the stupidest and most fun and worst games I've ever played in my life. So the thought of me going through a magical world as a wizard with a laser beam, where I shoot Wanderbot in the back of the head and kill him roughly every 15 seconds. I mean, sign me up. Like, that is exactly something that I want to be doing as soon as possible. And the developers were really cool. And then I went over and talked to the Holy Potatoes people. They have a new thing coming out, like Holy Potatoes We're in Hell or something. I don't know anything about the Holy Potatoes series so much, but it was really interesting to kind of meet those people that I have like somewhat of a connection with. So I went up and I played a demo of their newest game, and I don't really have much to say about it. It seems super duper casual, and I got the opportunity to name my character Wanderbot Sucks, and I got to do that before Wanderbots got to play it, so that's great. But what was probably the most interesting thing, at least in terms of the indie developers and the indie games I wanted to talk to, I went up and talked to the West of Loathing developers, and that was really cool because they gave me a free DLC, which I have somewhere. Yep, they gave me the Horse Armor DLC. On the back of this is the code that I can punch in to get it activated on Steam. When I asked what it does, they said nothing, but I have it, so that's going to be pretty cool. And I got a chance to talk to the animator for the game specifically, and he was a really nice guy. We talked about like how he animated the game. We complimented him on the silly walks animations that he's put into the game, and he told me just a little bit about what the process was with regards to creating the game in the first place. So apparently it's made in Unity. I could have sworn it was a Flash game, but they made it in Unity 2D. And apparently, all things considered, it was I think that they said it was actually a 3D game. It just happens to be a 2.5D game, but it runs entirely in the 3D mode of Unity. They just happen to use the 2D. How did you describe it? They used all the 2D tools to make the animations, to make the graphics, but then the game world itself actually takes place on a 3D plane. So I thought that was a really neat opportunity to just talk to a developer directly, which is something that I don't get a whole lot of opportunities to do. So that was really, really neat. Talking to developers is fun. And I'll talk a little bit about like that specifically later on, but that was a pretty fun little part of going to PAX, was just talking to developers directly. I have a suspicion that I went to there were two West of Loathing booths, actually. I went to the other one, and I had a suspicion that there were probably more devs there, but they weirded me out a little too much. I didn't want to fanboy at them because, like, I think that one of the developers was, like, Jick, who is, like, the writer for West of Loathing and Kingdom of Loathing, and he was sitting right there, and I was like, I don't know if I should say anything to this guy, because I think I'm going to come on a little strong if I do. But it was just kind of cool to see them and to see like these really, really obscure people having a booth at PAX. That's really, really awesome. And I was really kind of happy. I was just happy for them. It was neat.
Well, the reason they had two booths was because they were chosen as
right. So they had a showcase booth. It was a really neat thing about PAX. So they picked 10 games in particular that they thought showed a diverse range of things that people normally wouldn't go to see. So it was for smaller developers and smaller hardware vendors and stuff like that. I think it was actually just for developers. But it was just like the organizers picks for like, this is the stuff that we think is really cool and you might not actually give it a chance, but we're going to put it up on like a pedestal so that you all get to see it. And sitting there was West of Loathing, and that was the second booth where the other two developers were sitting at. I thought that was a really cool system, actually. What else did I do? Yeah, so after that, I checked out the Tiny Build booth. They are really pushing Hello Neighbor pretty hard, which is cool. I'm really looking forward to playing Hello Neighbor in December when that comes out. For people who don't know, that is a like it's a horror game where what you have to do is you need to break into your neighbor's basement and find out what they're up to. And it's really, really silly and really funny looking, and I am really looking forward to playing it. But it was supposed to come out a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, they had to push it back to December, and they made a big hubbub about it. I didn't read anything about it, but regardless, I checked out their booth a little bit. And then after that, I started going to a couple of panels. So the panels were, in my opinion, not as cool as the panels that I saw in MagFest on the whole, but they were really cool anyway. So the first panel I went to was for something that I didn't know anything about, and it was the world of video game cover music. So I guess that there's this whole thing that I didn't know anything about, and it's not limited just to video games, but there's a subculture on the internet where people will just do covers they'll just make videos where they cover popular songs, or they cover video game songs, or they cover movie songs, or whatever, and they just put their own spin on it, and then they release it, they put it up on their YouTube channel, and apparently there's a not insignificant following for these sorts of videos and these people that made that work for themselves. And I knew absolutely nothing about it, but it was a couple of channels. Maybe this means something to you all out there, but I saw Family Jewels talk. I saw, her name started with an A. It was like a pun. I saw Sebastian Wolf, a couple other people. There were like 5 panelists in total. And they were just talking about like their experiences being YouTubers and making just cover music. And that was a really neat panel. I didn't really have anything to identify with per se, but I also did. So what they talked about that really kind of resonated with me as a creative person, I guess, was they talked about their creative process in a fairly like high level and abstract way, where they said that a lot of their successes in what they do was due to failing a lot and not being afraid to like just keep on trying and constantly putting themselves out there and stuff like that. And that kind of that was an interesting point, because it's something that I haven't heard in a while. I mean, it's one of those things that you hear constantly if you're a creative type. It's like, oh, you need to try more, you need to do more things, because you'll fail and then you'll learn from your mistakes and then you'll do better and stuff like that. And that's how you learn how to make anything, whether it's music, whether it's YouTube videos, or whether it's drawings. And it was cool because I kind of took it to get back on the horse a little bit with regards to drawing more. So I have a Cintiq that I never use, but I have it, and I used it a lot, like up till about 2 or 3 months ago, and then I got too wrapped up in other things, and that kind of remotivated me to do more practice there. And what I'm probably going to do in the next couple of days, I don't really have a very strict timeline on this, and I'm not going to sink too much effort into it, but I want to set up a Tumblr where I just post artwork that I make every single day, and the majority of it is going to be really technical, not very artistic stuff. It's going to mostly just be exercises while I like retrain myself and just like I kind of grind through things. And it's not going to be a big main focus for me, but it's something that I want to do. And it's something that would be good for me to do, because it would just be another way for me to find out, like, you know, in the big scheme of things, you know, if I don't constantly go for things that I think I'm capable of doing, then I'm always going to be like, wow, man, where would I have been, or where would I be in life if I had done blank or whatever? And I don't want to live with that ever being a thought. So it's going to be good for me to set this up and to draw a lot more frequently, even if it's not something I'm going to care about so much, because it's just like it's going to allow me to push myself like even further and discover like, wow, I'm actually capable of drawing really well or whatever. So that's going to be something that I'll be setting up soon. I'll probably not read comments on it very often. Maybe like once a week on a Sunday, I'll just go through and see if anybody commented anything. But it'll be neat, and I think that a lot of people will think it's kind of cool just to see me do more shit. So yeah, that was my takeaway from a panel on how to make covers of video game music. Was I need to draw more. I don't know. It makes sense. I mean, I'm kind of making fun of myself, but really, like, I guess I wouldn't say I'm a person who's like afraid to fail, but I'm a person that doesn't value putting things out if I think they're not good. So, like, I do draw a lot, but I don't ever show it off because I don't think it's good. And then I was like, well, maybe I should just, if I'm practicing drawing or if I'm practicing the piano and all this stuff, I might as well share it because it doesn't do me any good if it just sits on my hard drive. So, just gonna do that. I'm just gonna do that some more. So yeah, I don't really remember much of what they talked about. Do you? Like, it was that was like what I listened to and keyed in on. Like, do you have anything you want to say?
They did mention that it was important to just like put things out there even if you think they're terrible, because if you keep trying to make it perfect, you will never put anything out.
Right. And that's more, that doesn't quite speak to why I'm motivated to like just dump drawings on the internet. It's more just like if you actually want to share something with the world. So their motivations are a little bit different, but regardless, the point still stands. Like, you can't be afraid to put out stuff that sucks. Because being shitty at something is the first step to being kind of good at something.
And then they also mentioned how you need to what am I saying? Like, not be afraid of getting negative comments.
Right, yeah.
And not dwell on them.
Mm-hmm. That's also something that I actually don't have a problem with whatsoever. And I feared the abstract of getting negative comments way more than when it became a reality. I probably get negative comments like at least like every couple of days, and the way that it works is that the people that give me negative comments and the people that insult me really suck at insulting me. Like, really, really suck at insulting me. Like, every negative comment I read and I find myself being more confused than anything else. Like, so for other people, they may say like, oh god, that negative comment, that really brought my day down. When I read my negative comments, it just says like get out of your parents' basement, and I'm like, there has never been a day in my life when my parents even owned a basement, and I find like I find when people insult me, they're really bad at it. So I guess I kind of got over that that fear of negative comments and dwelling on negative comments pretty fast, just because nobody can hurt me apparently, which is kind of cool, I guess. Yeah. Anything else to say about that panel? Because I think that pretty much covers it for me.
I think so for that one.
Yeah. So that was an interesting panel for people that actually identify more, or like that actually like subscribe to the world of cover artists and stuff like that. They all said that they are very, very sick of Undertale's Megalovania because they've all had to cover it a lot.
Except for one of them.
Except for one of them who didn't do it. And they also said that international copyright laws are, they're apparently atrocious, which doesn't surprise anybody.
They did mention a service, though.
That's true. They do have a service that'll do that.
Like, you pay for it, and then they take care of all the like licensing and copyrights and all that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, so that was that panel. And then we went to a couple more panels, and they were pretty interesting. I'm actually going to check the chats really quick. I have my glasses off because if I put them on, you can see that I don't like doing that very often. But I'm going to like just put them on real quick so I can actually read what people are saying. He won't read this. I'm sorry that I haven't been reading the chat very much. I literally can't. If I take my glasses off, I can't read anything that's more than like a couple inches in front of my face here. Good, except for the smoke around me. Yeah, we're getting wildfire smoke too up here, and that's really annoying. Does Brooke get comments about water due to scrap mechanic? The only person that comments on my videos to tell me to play scrap mechanic at this point is Wanderbots, who does it ironically. And he does it almost religiously too. I imagine he'll probably watch this video maybe, and if he does, then he's probably going to comment one of either play more scrap mechanic, and whenever he does that, okay, the Wanderbot voice is play more scrap mechanic, because that's how he always says it whenever he says that. Or like I am a tin of beans, but there you are. Fairly new to the channel. I've been here for a week and a half. Welcome. Yeah, cool. Stick around. Click on my ads. Nah, welcome. I've been getting a shit ton of subs lately. God, wow. Everything's happening all at once. Like, really slowly. And all at once at the same time. But, like, lots of new faces here. It's really pretty cool stuff. Build my parents a basement and then get out. Get out of your living room. I'm not in my living room. I'm in my office. I have my diplomas up there. I'm not going to show you my diplomas because they tell you what school I was in and when I graduated them, and also my name. And also what I got my diploma in, which, I mean, that part, you know, that's
a little
not...
more publicly.
Yeah, I got a bachelor's in computer science, a bachelor's in music, and a master's in music. So, there you go. They're up there. I put them up. They're pretty awesome. I look at them and I'm like, that was a lot of degrees. That's 10 years of degrees. That's 10 years. 2 bachelors is 4 years, 4 years, 8 years, and then 2 more years for a master's is 10 years. It's a long time to be in school. It's a really long time to be in school. But I'm done with school. Boy, am I happy for that. Okay, cool. Glasses are going off. Wait, hold on. I'll have to learn how to Tumblr for that. Oh, yeah, to look at my shit. I'll put links up. Playing more scrap. Okay, I'm taking the glasses off now. Cool. So then I had a couple panels after that. Well, I mean, I didn't have them. I went to watch other people talk. I went to see 2 more panels after that were pretty interesting to me in particular. The first panel was 10 things you need to know before you make an independent video game. And that was given by one of the developers of EverQuest. So this is a dude with a lot of industry experience, because EverQuest is like almost a 30-year-old game at this point. And to get like this guy's advice was really, really cool. So it was like 10 questions, and I don't really remember what a lot of the questions were. He put them up on the internet. It was a long day. I don't remember a lot of the details, but he put up like 10 questions that were like things like know your audience. Here we are. I count from 1 using my thumb like a German, by the way. I don't know why I started doing this one day. I thought it looked cool, so then I did it.
Roots.
Yeah. So, know your audience, know your market, know your genre, know your people, know your budget, and like, it was just like a bunch of questions that were. It was an interesting talk to me in particular because I'm working on a video game right now, and I had a answer for every single one of those questions. And that was like a really cool experience because I went into this and I left it without like learning anything new, but I felt like really self-assured that I like knew exactly what I was doing, because it was like, wow, I know exactly like what every single thing this guy was asking about in a very categorized manner. So that was a really, really neat talk. But it's the greater point of it. I mean, I might as well share something instead of just like, wow, I'm a kick-ass person. No, the point that he was building up to is that if you want to make a successful video game, you have to make a successful business. Sort of. His words specifically were, if you want to make a good video game and release it and have it be successful as like it's a good video game, that's one thing. If you want to make a successful product, then you need to make it a business. And making something a successful business is oftentimes not wholly the exact same as making a successful video game. Mostly due to things like if you make a great video game that has no audience, then it can be a great video game and it can be a horrible product because nobody's gonna buy it, and stuff like that. And he also talked about like if you make a really great video game and it has no promotion, then it will, like, if no one's heard about it, then it's also going to be a bad product. So if you sink all your time into just like making your video game and you sink none of your time into making anybody know about your video game, then you failed from a business perspective. And that is, to me, like, I knew that. Like, that's kind of an obvious thing because I've read a lot of books about, like, business in the abstract. And I've watched, like, videos on Khan Academy of, like, here's how businesses and firms tend to operate. And, like, I studied economics and stuff in my spare time just for the fun of it. And I know it's a really fun activity, right? I take the bus. I have like 10 minutes to kill every day when I take the bus, so I just put on Khan Academy and I put on economics videos and I just learn about like how to put together a successful business. Though again, econ and business are completely, they're not the same thing, but you know, whatever. The point is, like, I guess for a lot of people it may be not an obvious thing that like just because you make a really great product, a great video game doesn't mean you're making a good product. And if you're going to make your own video games and you want to make money and be successful and be rich and, you know, be like people that we talk about and hold up in the industry as like, yeah, they're awesome. They were multimillionaires because they made a video game in their basement for 3 years and then released it. You got to make a good business out of it. To that end, I saw another panel that was called So You Want to Make an Indie Video Game? And that was given by the CEO of Tiny Build, the CEO of Lambeer, and the CEO of God, I don't remember who the other person was. But suffice it to say, you know, Tiny Build, they're a publisher. They publish a lot of independent video games. And then Lambeer, they made Nuclear Throne and stuff like that. And that panel was a cacophonous mess of mostly bullshit, but it was really entertaining. But it was also like one of the weirdest panels I've ever seen in my entire life. The gist of it was the exact same as the panel that I saw before it, but it was also really funny. That's like literally all I can say about it. One thing that I did think was a little bit interesting, though, if I were to talk about anything out of that panel, is the CEO of Tiny Build is kind of insane. Like, do you agree? Like,
which one was the CEO of Tiny Build?
He was the Russian guy in the middle, or the Eastern European guy.
Oh yeah, with the orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was obsessed with yeah, why not make things bright and sparkly at cons to draw people in? Yeah,
his sense of his business sense was like the weirdest thing I'd ever heard of in my entire life. But clearly it worked for him, so good job.
And he was wearing a bright orange hat at this panel.
Yeah, so he was pretty funny. But he talked about, like, he's a publisher, so he shared some really, really fascinating anecdotes of really, really clueless, stupid people that they would come up to him, and he said, like, that these were people that lived in Eastern Europe, which economically is, like, a very depressed region of the world to live in compared to what we're used to in Western civilization. But he was saying that, like, people would say, like, that they, like, would basically stake their entire life on a video game, and they'd come up to him and be like, yeah, I want to get this done. My budget is, I'm going to sell my house to finance making this video game. And he would have to tell people, like, no, don't do that, because if he was like, if I fail as the publisher and I don't make your game sell well, then you die. He was like, I'm not gonna put that on myself or any other human being. So he shared a couple anecdotes like that I thought were astounding to hear. But he said that his perspective as a publisher out of Eastern Europe was like completely different from any of the realities of what it was like to self-publish out of, like, say, the West Coast of the United States, where he was like, yeah, around here, like, you know, you can be a programmer at like a gigantic tech company and you just program for 3 years and then you turn around and you finance your video game and then you make that happen. And he was like, in Eastern Europe, developers maybe get like a couple $1,000s a year, and that's like it. And they can't self-publish or they can't finance their development or anything like that. So he was like, whatever you do, you know, in Eastern Europe, if you want to make an independent video game, don't quit your day job because you might die. And he was like, if you are in the United States and you're, you know, when you want to make a video game, don't quit your day job because you're going to take like a 700%, like not 700%, but you're going to take like a 80% pay cut to do it. Which, God, that was fascinating. But on the whole, that was one of the most weird panels I've ever seen in my life.
And then one of them went for a pee break in the middle.
Yeah, and then he made a big deal out of
funny.
it. It was really funny. Like, the CEO of like the company that made Nuclear Throne, he's completely out of his goddamn mind as far as I'm concerned.
But super
But
entertaining.
he's really entertaining. But he got up to pee, and I've never seen somebody make a bigger showing of them having to leave to take a pee than this guy. I can't even describe it, but he just like, he actually got applause for leaving the room to go take a whiz. And this room was packed, by the way, so he got applause from, like, I want to say 400 people to go take a whiz. Completely weird dude. That's all there's to say about that panel. Like I said, you know, unless I'm missing anything, it was the exact same information as the panel before it, right?
Basically, but it was more just like, if you're going to make a game, make sure you're practical about it, and
Right.
you don't expect your first game or whatever to be successful.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
they also mentioned doing like quick games, like one
Mhm.
a week or something like that.
Yeah, if you don't have the patience to work on something for a very long period of time, then make it something that you can finish really quickly. That was like the gist of what he said.
But then also that, like, to make a habit of doing one a week continuously,
Yeah.
just to refine your skills.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can see that being applicable for a lot of people that are just starting out, but like, if you have the focus to work on a single project, then just work on a single project and work through it. As long as your idea is good. If your idea is bad, then don't commit 3 years to it. Which does bring up a funny anecdote that I once heard, where somebody talked about a video game that they worked on for 7 years straight, and it ended up being about 10 levels long, because every level was a different genre of video game. Don't be that person. He screwed up. But it was one of the weirdest things I'd ever read about. Oh man, this vlog's gone on for a lot longer than I thought it would. After that, I saw the panel given by Jesse Cox. They released a TV show about esports called Good Game. They put that out, and I got to hear them talk about what it was like for them to make a TV show starring the Game Grumps. And that was a really, really entertaining panel, because I learned a lot of really fun facts about that show. I'm not actually a big fan of that show, but it was really fun to learn as much details as I did about it. I learned that apparently the game Kilgore that's featured so prominently in that game is actually a playable tech demo. Hang on, this remix is really loud. Let's just turn it down a little. Okay, that's better. Anyway, so the game Kilgore in Good Game, and if you haven't seen it, Killcore, sorry. If you haven't seen Good Game, then you might as well watch it. The first game, or the first episode is up for free on YouTube, and if you like the Game Grumps, then you'll probably like that show. So apparently the game that's featured, like the parody of Dota 2 that they have, or League of Legends, or whatever, the parody MOBA that they have in the game, or in the TV show, is playable. And he showed us like a lot of the 3D models that they made for it, and apparently it's just a mod for StarCraft 2 that they put together in 5 months. And they talked about what it was like to make that happen. And they said they had to actually contact the people over at Blizzard to say, like, hey, we want to make something in StarCraft and we want to use it in our TV show, but we don't want to necessarily release it. And then they had to, like, work out that sort of stuff. And a lot of the models that they use are really, really funny. There's one where it's called like the Salt Spectre or something, and he's got a salt shaker and he's a ghost, and his ultimate is that he dies and he rage quits the game, and he turns into a pile of salt. And he also attacks. His attack animation is it's very suggestive, we'll say. But they also had one of the actors up there, and he's like 17 years old, and he was like, yeah, they had me like say a bunch of swear words that I didn't know the definition of and stuff like that, and I thought that was a really funny anecdote.
Well, because he was the one who plays the trolley character on the show.
Right, so there's this one character who's like a troll, and he's a really toxic dude, and he insults people all the time and calls them your typical internet insults. And apparently the actor basically doesn't have any clue about like the esports subculture at all. So he had to learn like a whole bunch of like nasty insults that people come up with on the internet that he'd never heard in his entire life, which it's a funny anecdote.
They also had to choreograph the like keyboard clicks and things like that to make it look realistic.
Yeah, they had to. They didn't want the CSI effect where it's like Jesse Cox said this specifically. He was like, he hates it in Charlie's Angels where they have two people with two controllers playing Final Fantasy VIII. Or my pet peeve, and they talked about this briefly, is when you pull out the controller and they're like, oh man, it's got to race and it's got to win and to fight and stuff like